The millionaire cruelly humiliated the nurse in front of the entire hospital. A minute later, he fainted because of what she said. The hallway of St. Gabriel Hospital was full of hectic activity. Doctors and nurses moved back and forth with the precision of a Swiss watch, while relatives of patients anxiously awaited news of their loved ones. Amidst this organized chaos, a tall, well-dressed man determinedly made his way through. His name was Johannes Müller, and despair was reflected in every line of his face. Johannes stopped in front of the intensive care reception, his knuckles white from clenching his fists. "I must see my son, Matthias Müller," he demanded, his voice strained with worry and exhaustion. The nurse behind the counter, a middle-aged woman with a compassionate but determined expression, shook her head. "I am sorry, Mr. Müller, but visits are currently restricted. The doctor will speak with you as soon as possible." Johannes felt anger welling up inside. How could they dare to deny him access to his own son? He, who had built a business empire with his own hands and was used to doors opening for him, was now powerless in the face of a simple hospital rule. "Do you have any idea who I am?" he growled, leaning over the counter. "I am Johannes Müller. I can buy and sell this hospital 10 times over if I want to. I demand to see my son immediately." The nurse, Anna Schmidt, remained calm despite Johannes's intimidating presence. She had dealt with worried relatives before, but there was something about this man's arrogance that deeply irritated her. "Mr. Müller," she replied in a calm but firm voice, "I understand your concern, but the rules are there to protect the patients. Your son is receiving the best possible care. I assure you of that." "Don't assure me of anything," Johannes interrupted her, slamming his palm on the counter. "You have no idea what I am going through. My son is dying, and you are denying me the right to be with him. What kind of monster are you?" Anna felt her heart tighten at these words. She knew exactly what it was like to lose a child. The image of her little Alexander, who had died years earlier under similar circumstances, shot through her mind like a painful bolt of lightning. Nevertheless, she remained professional. "Mr. Müller, please lower your voice. This is a hospital and there are other patients who need rest." Johannes looked at her with contempt. "How dare you tell me what to do? You are a simple nurse. You have no idea what true suffering is. You probably don't even have children." These words hit Anna like a slap in the face. For a moment, she felt her professional mask crack, but she managed to keep her composure. "Mr. Müller, I ask you to calm down or I will have to call security." "Oh, security," Johannes scoffed. "Do you think I'm afraid of a few underpaid guards? I am warning you, nurse. If you don't let me see my son right now, I will make sure you never work in a hospital again. I will make your life a living hell." Anna felt her own anger beginning to boil. How could this man dare to threaten her when she was just doing her job? But years of experience had taught her to remain calm in crisis situations. "Your threats will not change the hospital rules, Mr. Müller," she said firmly. "I suggest you wait in the waiting room for the doctor. I promise you that we will keep you updated on your son's condition." Johannes looked at her with eyes burning with rage. For a moment it seemed as if he would explode again, but then, as if he remembered something, he stepped back. "This isn't over yet," he growled, before walking toward the waiting room. Anna watched him walk away. Her heart was beating wildly. She knew this confrontation was only the beginning. Johannes Müller did not seem like a man who accepted no for an answer, and she suspected the coming days would be a constant battle. Meanwhile, little Matthias Müller was fighting for his life in the ICU, unaware of the drama unfolding outside his doors. The monitors beeped constantly, measuring every heartbeat, every assisted breath. And amidst this silence, interrupted only by the sound of the machines, an inexperienced nurse made a mistake that would soon trigger an even greater storm. The next morning dawned gray and rainy, as if the sky itself reflected the agony being experienced at St. Gabriel's Hospital. Johannes Müller had not slept all night. His bloodshot eyes stared through the window of the waiting room, watching the raindrops hitting the glass in an incessant rhythm. Dr. Alexander Weber, head of the intensive care unit, approached Johannes with hesitant steps. His face showed a mixture of worry and guilt that immediately made Johannes' heart beat faster. "Mr. Müller," Dr. Weber began, his voice barely audible over the murmur of the waiting room. "I need to speak with you about Matthias's condition." Johannes sprang up, his body tense as a violin string. "What is it, doctor?" "Has something changed, doctor?" Weber took a deep breath before he continued. "I am afraid there has been a complication. Last night, during the shift change, a mistake was made in administering Matthias's medication." The world seemed to stand still for Johannes. The doctor's words rang in his ears like a distant echo. "Mistake?" he repeated in disbelief. "What kind of mistake?" "A trainee nurse mixed up the dosage of one of the medications," Dr. Weber explained, his voice full of regret. "Fortunately, we noticed it in time and were able to correct it, but it has complicated Matthias's condition further." The anger Johannes had been holding back since the evening before exploded like a volcano. "How is this possible?" he roared, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. "This is supposed to be one of the best hospitals in the country, and you're telling me you nearly killed my son with a beginner's mistake?" Dr. Weber tried to calm Johannes down, but it was like trying to put out a fire with a glass of water. "Mr. Müller, I understand your frustration. I assure you that we will take all necessary measures." "Your assurances mean nothing to me," Johannes interrupted. "I want to see my son immediately, and I want that incompetent nurse fired at once." At that moment, Anna, who had been watching the scene from afar, decided to intervene. She approached with a firm step, her face a mask of professional resolve. "Mr. Müller," she said, stepping up beside Dr. Weber, "I understand that you are upset, but shouting will not help Matthias. We need you to be calm so that we can explain the situation and our options to you." Johannes turned to her, his eyes burning with rage. "You again? Haven't you already caused enough damage? Or was it you who nearly killed my son?" Anna felt as if she had been slapped, but she maintained her composure. "No, Mr. Müller. I wasn't on shift last night. But as the head nurse of the intensive care unit, it is my responsibility to handle this situation." "Your responsibility?" Johannes mocked. "Your responsibility was to ensure that something like this didn't happen in the first place. How can I trust that my son is in good hands if you allow incompetent beginners to treat him?" Dr. Weber tried to mediate. "Mr. Müller, please. I understand your anger, but I assure you that we are doing everything for Matthias. Actually, there is a surgery," but Johannes was no longer listening. His gaze was fixed on Anna, as if she embodied everything that was wrong with this hospital. "You," he said, pointing an accusing finger at her. "You are responsible for this. I swear to you, I will make sure that you lose your licenses. I will sue this hospital until there is nothing left standing." Anna remained steadfast despite the threat. "Mr. Müller, I understand your pain and your frustration, but I assure you that everyone here is committed to your son's life. The mistake was serious, yes, but we have taken measures to correct it and prevent it from happening again." Johannes stepped closer to her, his face only inches from hers. "You have no idea what pain is," he hissed. "You have no idea what it's like to watch your son fight for his life while you supposed experts make stupid mistakes." For a moment, something changed in Anna's eyes. A flash of pain so deep and raw that even Johannes noticed it. But before he could say anything, Dr. Weber intervened. "Mr. Müller, please, we need to discuss the options for Matthias. There is a surgery that could save his life, but it is risky." These words finally broke through Johannes's cloud of rage. "A surgery? What kind of surgery?" Dr. Weber cast a glance at Anna, who nodded slightly before he continued. It is an experimental procedure. It could save Matthias's life, but it also carries significant risks. We need your consent to proceed. Johannes slumped into a nearby chair. All his rage suddenly turned into fear. Risks? What kind of risks? While Dr. Weber began to explain the details of the surgery, Anna watched Johannes. She saw the arrogant and threatening man crumble, revealing a frightened and desperate father. For a moment, she felt a flicker of empathy. Mr. Mueller, she said gently, stepping toward him. I know it is hard, but we need you focused now. Matthias needs you strong and focused. Johannes looked at her, and for the first time, there was no anger in his eyes, only fear and despair. I don't know what to do, he admitted. His voice was little more than a whisper. Anna placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort that surprised them both. We will do everything possible for Matthias, but we need your trust. As Johannes nodded slowly, processing the information about the surgery, Anna felt something shift between them. The wall of hostility began to crumble, revealing a shared vulnerability. But while the storm in the waiting room seemed to subside temporarily, the machines monitoring Matthias began to emit a series of alarming beeps. A new crisis was looming, one that would test not only the skills of the medical team, but also the fragile truce between Johannes and Anna. The shrill sound of the alarms shattered the tense calm that had settled in the waiting room. Dr. Weber sprang up. His face transformed into a mask of professional concentration. I must go, he said quickly before rushing toward the intensive care unit. Johannes stood up as well. Panic was visible in every line of his face. What is happening? Is it Matthias? Anna, who was already moving toward the ward, paused for a moment. Mr. Mueller, please stay here. We will inform you as soon as we know something. But Johannes was not prepared to stay on the sidelines. With a speed surprising for a businessman, he rushed after Anna and Dr. Weber, ignoring the protests of the staff. In the intensive care unit, there was the controlled chaos of a medical emergency. Doctors and nurses moved with precise choreography around Matthias's bed, whose small body was being shaken by convulsions. Johannes, who had managed to slip in behind Anna, froze in the doorway, his face a mask of horror as he saw his son in this condition. Matthias, he cried out, trying to approach, but Anna held him back firmly. Mr. Mueller, you cannot be here, she said in a firm but understanding voice. Please let the team do their work. Dr. Weber shouted instructions amidst the action. We need to stabilize him now. Prepare the OR. Johannes looked at Anna, panic clearly visible in his eyes. Are you going to operate on him now? Anna nodded gravely. The surgery we talked about, it seems we have no other choice. It is risky. But if we don't do it... She did not have to finish the sentence. Johannes understood the gravity of the situation. For a moment, all his arrogance, all his anger disappeared and were replaced by pure, raw fear. What should I do? He asked. His voice barely more than a whisper. Anna looked into his eyes and for the first time recognized the vulnerable man behind the facade of power. You have to make a decision, Mr. Mueller. Now. Time seemed to stand still while Johannes struggled internally. All his money, all his power meant nothing in this moment. His son's life was hanging by a thread, and he had to decide whether to risk everything on a dangerous surgery. Do it, he finally said, his voice broken. Save my son. With these words, a new wave of activity was triggered. They prepared Matthias for surgery, while Dr. Weber gave his team quick instructions. Anna led Johannes out of the intensive care unit into a small private room. The surgery will take several hours, she explained gently. I will keep you updated on all developments. Johannes slumped into a chair. All his energy was spent. He looked up at Anna and for the first time since his arrival at the hospital, there was no hostility in his gaze. "Thank you," he murmured. Anna nodded, surprised by the change in his demeanor. She was about to leave when Johannes spoke again. You said before you would understand." "How can you understand?" he asked. His voice a mixture of curiosity and despair. Anna paused, her hand on the door handle. For a moment she considered maintaining her professional distance, but something about Johannes's vulnerability moved her. "Because I also lost a son," she said quietly, turning toward him, 5 years ago. His name was Alexander. Johannes looked at her, surprised. "I didn't know that." "I'm sorry." Anna nodded, accepting his words. "That is why I am here, Mr. Mueller. To ensure that no other father has to go through what I went through." With those words, she left the room and left Johannes alone with his thoughts. The once so powerful businessman suddenly found himself rethinking everything he thought he knew about the nurse he had threatened and insulted. Meanwhile, Dr. Weber and his team fought for Matthias's life in the operating room. The surgery was complex and risky. Every move could mean the difference between life and death. The hours passed slowly. Johannes alternated between phases of anxious waiting and moments of deep reflection. He thought of his son, of how busy he had been building his empire that he often forgot to spend time with him. He thought of Anna, of how harshly he had judged her without knowing her story. Finally, after an eternity, the door opened. Anna stepped in, her face tired, but with a small smile. "Mr. Mueller," she said gently, "the surgery is over. Matthias is stable." Johannes jumped up, his legs trembling. Is he all right?" Anna nodded. "He is out of immediate danger, but the next 48 hours will be critical. Dr. Weber will be here shortly to give you more details." The wave of relief that washed over Johannes was overwhelming. Without thinking, he went up to Anna and hugged her, which surprised her. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for everything." Anna, surprised by the gesture, patted him gently on the back before carefully pulling away. "We are just doing our job, Mr. Mueller." Johannes looked at her, his eyes shining with held-back tears. "No, it's more than that. I was an idiot. I'm sorry." Anna watched him for a moment, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "I accept your apology," she said finally. "Would you like to see your son now?" Johannes nodded eagerly, and together they made their way to the intensive care unit. As they walked, it became clear to Johannes that something had changed. Not just in his relationship with Anna, but in himself. The experience of almost losing his son had shown him what was truly important in life. As they entered the room where Matthias was resting, surrounded by machines but alive, Johannes felt he was on the verge of a great change. A change that would affect not just his life, but everyone around him. The following days were an emotional roller coaster for Johannes Mueller. He spent every moment he could at Matthias's bedside in the intensive care unit. He anxiously watched every small change on the monitors, every movement of his son. Dr. Weber and his team came and went regularly, adjusting medications and running tests, always under Anna's attentive supervision every step of the way. It was during one of these routine visits that Johannes, exhausted and emotionally drained, finally collapsed. "I can't lose him," he muttered, more to himself than to the others in the room. "He is all I have." Anna, who was just checking Matthias's vital signs, paused and looked at Johannes with a mix of compassion and curiosity. "Mr. Mueller," she said softly, "Matthias is making good progress. You must remain strong for him." Johannes looked up, his eyes red from lack of sleep and held back tears. "How do you do it?" he asked suddenly. "How can you be here day after day and watch children fight for their lives? How do you endure that after what you've been through?" Anna visibly stiffened at the question, but then her shoulders relaxed with a sigh. She sat down on a chair next to Johannes, maintaining a professional yet close distance. "It's not easy," she admitted. Every child I see here reminds me of Alexander in a way, but that also gives me strength, because I know how important what we do here is. Johannes looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time since his arrival at the hospital. He saw the lines of fatigue on her face, but also the determination in her eyes. Tell me about him, he asked quietly. About Alexander. Anna hesitated for a moment, but something about Johannes' sincere curiosity convinced her. Alexander was 6 years old when he got sick, she began, her voice soft but firm. He was a brilliant boy, always smiling, always curious. He loved dinosaurs and dreamed of becoming a paleontologist. As she spoke, Johannes noticed how her eyes lit up as she remembered her son, despite the obvious pain in her voice. When he was diagnosed with leukemia, our world fell apart, Anna continued. We spent months in the hospital and fought with everything we had. But in the end, her voice broke slightly, and Johannes, in a gesture that surprised them both, took her hand for support. I am so sorry, he said sincerely. I cannot imagine your pain. Anna gave him a small, grateful smile. After I lost Alexander, I thought I could never enter a hospital again. But then I realized that I could use my experience to help other parents, other children. It is my way of keeping Alexander's memory alive. Johannes nodded and felt a new wave of respect for the woman whom he had threatened and insulted only days before. You are very brave, he said softly. Anna shook her head. It is not bravery, Mr. Mueller. It is love. The same love that you feel for Matthias. These words hit Johannes hard. Suddenly he found himself talking. The words poured out in a flood he could not hold back. I was a terrible father, he confessed. The tears finally ran down his cheeks. I was always so busy with work, trying to earn more money, expanding the business. I thought that was what mattered, that I was giving Matthias a good life, but now he paused, looking at the pale but peaceful face of his sleeping son. Now I realize that I have wasted so much time, he continued. So many moments I could have spent with him, so many things I could have taught him. And now I could lose him without ever really having had the chance to be his father. Anna listened in silence and let Johannes pour his heart out. When he had finally calmed down, she spoke gently. It is not too late, Mr. Mueller, she said. Matthias is fighting, and when he wakes up, you will have the chance to be the father you want to be. Johannes looked at her, a spark of hope in his eyes. Do you really believe he will wake up? Anna nodded firmly. I believe in Matthias, and I believe in the team that is caring for him. Now I need you to believe too. At that moment, as if he had heard her words, Matthias moved slightly in bed. It was barely more than a flicker of his eyelids, but for Johannes and Anna, it was like a ray of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Matthias, Johannes called out, leaning over the bed. Son. Anna was already in action, checking the monitors and calling out Dr. Weber. That is a good sign, Mr. Mueller, she said with a smile. Matthias is fighting to come back to us. As Dr. Weber hurried into the room, Johannes stood beside his son's bed holding his small hand. In his mind, he made a silent promise. If Matthias recovered, he would be the father his son deserved. No more long hours at the office, no more business trips keeping him away for weeks. He would be there for Matthias at every soccer game, every school play, every important moment, and every ordinary day. And as he watched Anna and Dr. Weber working efficiently around Matthias, Johannes realized he still had much to learn about true strength and true courage. Perhaps, he thought, this was not the end of a nightmare, but the beginning of a new chapter in his life. A chapter in which money and power were no longer the most important things, but love, compassion, and gratitude. With this determination in his heart, Johannes Mueller prepared for the long road ahead, resolved to become not only a better father, but also a better man. The ICU room was wrapped in an expectant silence broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the machines monitoring Matthias's vital signs. Johannes Mueller, with dark circles under his eyes and a stubbly beard, sat beside his son's bed holding his small hand in his own. Anna, who had just arrived for her morning shift, watched the scene from the doorway with a mixture of compassion and hope. "Good morning, Mr. Mueller," she said softly, stepping closer. "Have there been any changes overnight?" Johannes looked up, his eyes tired but alert. I think he moved his fingers a little while ago," he replied, his voice raspy from exhaustion and suppressed emotion. "That's good, right?" Anna smiled as she began to check the monitors and the IV drip. "That is a very good sign. It means Matthias is fighting to come back to us." As Anna performed her routine checks, Johannes watched her with a new appreciation. He no longer saw the stubborn nurse who had denied him access to his son days ago, but a dedicated and compassionate professional who had been there for him in his darkest moments. "Anna," he said suddenly, surprising her by using her first name, "I want to thank you for everything. Not just for taking care of Matthias, but also for putting up with me." Anna paused in the middle of her task, surprised by the sincerity in Johannes's voice. "You don't need to thank me, Mr. Mueller. It's my job." "No," insisted Johannes, shaking his head. "It goes beyond your job. The way you helped me keep hope alive, how you were patient with me, even when I was a complete idiot. That is not just a job, it's a calling." Anna felt a lump forming in her throat. She was not used to receiving this kind of recognition, especially from someone who had started out as an adversary. "Thank you, Mr. Mueller," she said quietly. "That means a lot to me." At that exact moment, a slight movement in the bed caught both of their attention. Matthias's eyelids twitched, and his fingers moved inside his father's hand. "Matthias!" Johannes cried out, leaning over the bed. "Son, can you hear me?" Anna was already in action, checking the monitors and pressing the button to call Dr. Weber. "Talk to him, Mr. Mueller," she instructed. "Your voice can help him orient himself." Johannes nodded, his voice trembling with emotion as he spoke. "Matthias, it's me, Dad. I am here with you. You are safe, son. Please open your eyes." As if responding to his father's request, Matthias's eyes began to open slowly. At first, his gaze was unfocused, but little by little, it fixed on Johannes's face. Dad, he murmured weakly. Johannes let out a sob of relief and joy. "Yes, son, it's me. I am here." Dr. Weber hurried into the room, followed by a team of nurses. "Excellent," he said with a smile, seeing that Matthias was awake. "We are going to perform a few quick examinations. All right?" As the medical team worked, Johannes stepped aside to give them space, but without taking his eyes off his son. Anna stepped up to him and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "He made it," she said gently. "Matthias is a fighter." Johannes nodded, tears streaming freely down his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for not letting me lose hope." After a few minutes that felt like hours, Dr. Weber approached Johannes with a smile. "Mr. Mueller, I am pleased to inform you that Matthias is responding very well. His vital signs are stable, and he is alert. He still has a long way to go, but this is a big step in his recovery." Johannes felt an enormous weight lift from his shoulders. "Can I be with him?" "Of course," answered Dr. Weber. "But remember, he needs to rest. Try not to exhaust him." Johannes nodded and approached Matthias's bed. His son looked at him with tired but recognizing eyes. "Dad," Matthias said weakly, "have you stayed here the whole time?" Johannes felt his heart constrict at the question. "Yes, son, and I will stay as long as you need me. I promise you that." Matthias smiled slightly before his eyes began to close again. "I love you, Dad," he murmured before falling back asleep. "I love you too, son," Johannes replied, kissing Matthias gently on the forehead. "More than I ever thought possible." As he turned, he saw Anna, who was watching the scene with a moved smile. "It's beautiful to see you both like this," she said softly. Johannes nodded, feeling overwhelmed by emotion. "Anna, I don't know how to thank you enough. You have been my rock through all of this." Anna shook her head. "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Mueller. Seeing Matthias awake and seeing you with him is all the thanks I need." Johannes looked at her for a moment. An idea formed in his mind. "I want to do something," he said suddenly. "Something to thank the hospital to help other children like Matthias. Do you think you could help me with that?" Anna looked at him in surprise, but with a spark of interest in her eyes, as, "Of course, Mr. Mueller. What do you have in mind?" "I'm not exactly sure," Johannes admitted, "but I want to use my resources to make a difference, to ensure other parents and children have the same chance as Matthias." Anna smiled, feeling that she was witnessing the birth of something important. "I would be happy to help in any way I can," she said. While Matthias slept peacefully, Johannes and Anna began to discuss ideas, the seed of a project that would change not just their lives, but those of many others. Matthias's awakening had marked not just the start of his recovery, but also the beginning of a new mission for Johannes Mueller, a mission of gratitude and hope. In the weeks following Matthias's awakening, Johannes Mueller's life took a radical turn. The powerful businessman, once known for his relentless pursuit of success and wealth, now spent the majority of his time at the hospital split between caring for his recovering son and working on his new project with Anna. One afternoon, while Matthias was sleeping peacefully, Johannes and Anna were in a small hospital conference room, surrounded by papers and charts. "So," Johannes said, running a hand through his disheveled hair, "do you think a foundation would be the best way to do it?" Anna nodded and pointed to some of the documents in front of them. "A foundation would allow us to channel resources more efficiently. We could fund research, improve equipment, and even provide support for families who cannot afford expensive treatments." Johannes looked at her admiringly. Over the past few weeks, he had discovered that Anna was not just a dedicated nurse, but also a brilliant strategist when it came to healthcare. "It's incredible," he murmured. "I never thought I would do something like this." Anna smiled. "Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Johannes nodded thoughtfully. "You know, a month ago, my biggest worry was closing $1 million deal. Now I just want to ensure that no father has to go through what I went through, what you went through." Anna's face softened at the mention of her own loss. "It is a noble cause, Johannes," she said, unconsciously, using his first name. "Alexander would be proud." Johannes noticed the slip, but didn't mention it. Instead, he realized he enjoyed the camaraderie that had developed between them. "You are the real inspiration here, Anna. Your strength, your dedication, it's admirable." For a moment, their eyes met and something indescribable passed between them. It was Anna who broke eye contact first and cleared her throat. We should get back to work," she said, with slightly flushed cheeks. "There is a lot to do." Johannes nodded and tried to ignore his suddenly accelerated heartbeat. "You're right. Where do we start?" As they dove back into the details of their project, neither of them noticed the figure watching them from the half-open door. Dr. Weber, who had come to find Anna for a consultation, walked away quietly, a small smile on his face. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Johannes divided his time between meetings with his legal team to establish the foundation, visits with Matthias, who was getting better by the day, and long planning sessions with Anna. One afternoon, while they were discussing possible names for the foundation, Matthias interrupted them with an innocent question. "Dad, is Anna your girlfriend?" Johannes almost choked on the coffee he was drinking, while Anna stood there staring, eyes wide open. "No, honey," answered Johannes, coughing slightly. Anna is. She is a very special friend who has helped us a lot." Matthias looked at them curiously. You spend a lot of time with her and you smile a lot. When you are together, Anna intervened, her voice slightly trembling. Matthias, your dad and I are working on a very important project to help other children like you. Oh, said Matthias, appearing to process the information. Then he added with the brutal honesty of a child, well, I think you two would make a nice couple. The silence that followed was deafening. Johannes and Anna looked at each other, both blushing and not knowing what to say. It was Anna who finally broke the awkward moment. I think I should go check on some reports, she said hastily, gathering her things. I'll see you both tomorrow. After Anna had left, Johannes sat down by Matthias's bed. His head was spinning. Son, he said gently, Anna is a very important friend to us. But things are complicated. Matthias looked at him with a wisdom beyond his years. Why do adults always say that things are complicated? Johannes couldn't help but laugh. You're right. Sometimes we make things more difficult than they need to be. That evening, as Johannes drove back home, something he rarely did, as he spent most nights at the hospital, he couldn't stop thinking about Matthias's words. Was he developing feelings for Anna? And if so, what did that mean for their professional relationship for the foundation project? Meanwhile, Anna stood in her small apartment in front of a photo of Alexander, her heart torn. What am I doing? She muttered to herself. I can't. I must not. But even as she spoke those words, she knew that something had changed. The seed of a deeper feeling had been sown, and only time would tell if it would blossom or wither under the weight of her fears and reservations. What neither of them knew was that the seeds of change they had sown, both in their personal lives and in their joint project, would soon face a storm that would test their strength and resolve. A storm that threatened to destroy everything they had built, but which could also be the key to a future that neither of them dared to imagine. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Johannes's temporary office at the hospital when his phone rang with a call from his assistant, Louise. Mr. Mueller, Louise's voice sounded tense. We have a problem. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They are questioning your prolonged absence and recent financial decisions. Johannes felt a knot form in his stomach. He had been so focused on Matthias and the foundation project that he had almost completely neglected his business responsibilities. I understand, Louise, he replied, rubbing his eyes. I'll be there in an hour. He hung up and quickly went to Matthias's room. His son was awake and coloring in a book that Anna had brought him. Hey, buddy, Johannes said, forcing a smile. Daddy has to go to the office for a while. Will you be okay? Matthias nodded, though Johannes noticed a hint of disappointment in his eyes. Are you coming back soon? I'll try, Johannes promised, kissing his son's forehead. Be good for the nurses. Okay. As he headed for the exit, he met Anna in the hallway. Everything okay? She asked, noticing his worried expression. Problems at the office, Johannes replied curtly. I have to go put out some fires. Anna nodded understandingly. Go. I'll take care of Matthias. Johannes gave her a grateful smile before hurriedly leaving the hospital. The board meeting was as tense as Johannes had feared. The shareholders were concerned about the company's stock drop and questioned Johannes's decision to divert a significant amount to the new foundation. We understand your personal situation, Mr. Mueller, said one of the board members, but you have responsibilities to this company and its shareholders. Johannes stood up, his face a mask of determination. Gentlemen, I understand your concerns, but I assure you that this foundation is not only morally right, but will also benefit the company in the long run. Think of the reputation, of the company's social responsibility. There was murmuring of disagreement in the room. Another board member, an older man named Ernst Vogel, rose. Johannes, he said, his voice full of condescension, you have always been a visionary in the business world. But I fear this time your emotions are clouding your judgment. I propose a vote to temporarily relieve Mr. Mueller of his duties as CEO until this situation is resolved. A shock went through the room. Johannes felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "You can't do that," he said, his voice strained. "I built this company from the ground up, and that is why." "We want to protect it," Ernst replied, "even from yourself, if necessary." The vote was swift and brutal. By a narrow margin, the board decided to suspend Johannes from his duties as CEO for a period of 3 months. Stunned, Johannes left the boardroom. His assistant Louise was waiting outside with a worried look on her face. "Mr. Mueller, what happened?" Johannes shook his head, unable to find the words. "Prepare a press conference," he finally said. "I need to get ahead of this before it leaks to the media." Meanwhile, Anna had her own problems at the hospital. Dr. Weber had called her into his office. "Anna," the doctor said, his tone serious, "I've noticed you're spending a lot of time with Mr. Mueller outside of your professional responsibilities." Anna felt her pulse quicken. "We're working on a project for the foundation, doctor." "It's for the good of the hospital." Dr. Weber nodded slowly. "I understand, but I'm concerned this might be affecting your professional judgment. Some staff members have expressed concerns about favoritism." "Favoritism?" Anna repeated in disbelief. "Doctor, I assure you that my relationship with Mr. Mueller is purely professional." "Yes." "That may be," Dr. Weber replied, "but perceptions matter in our line of work. I suggest you take a step back and focus on your main responsibilities." Anna left the office frustrated and confused. How could people misinterpret her commitment to the foundation project? When she returned to Matthias's room, she was surprised to see Johannes there, his face grim, as he talked on the phone. "Yes, I understand," he said. "No, I won't be making any comments right now. The press conference will be in an hour." He hung up and looked at Anna, his eyes full of anger and defeat. "They've suspended me," he said simply. "What?" Anna exclaimed, forgetting her own situation for a moment. "How could they do that?" Johannes ran a hand through his hair. "They think I'm neglecting the company because of the foundation, and they're partly right. But they don't understand how important this is." Anna placed a comforting hand on his arm, forgetting Dr. Weber's warnings for a moment. "I'm so sorry, Johannes. What are you going to do?" "Fight," he replied. His determination returned. "I won't let them destroy everything we've worked for. The foundation is too important." At that moment, Matthias, who had been pretending to sleep, spoke up. "Dad, are you in trouble because of me?" Johannes turned to his son, his expression softening instantly. "No, buddy. None of this is your fault. It's just complicated grown-up stuff." Anna watched the interaction. Her heart tightened. She knew she had to tell Johannes about her own situation. But how could she add more stress to what he was already going through? "Johannes," she began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you." But before she could continue, the door was thrown open. Hirschvogel entered, followed by 2 security guards. "I'm sorry, Johannes," Ernst said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "But the board has decided that you must be escorted from all company facilities, including this hospital." Johannes stood up, furious. "You can't do that. My son is here." "Your son can stay," Ernst replied coldly, "but you must leave now." Anna watched in horror as the guards approached Johannes. Matthias began to cry, calling for his father. In that moment, Anna made a decision. She stepped between Johannes and the guards. "You can't do this," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "This is a hospital, not company property. Mr. Mueller has every right to be here with his son." Ernst looked at her with disdain. "And who are you to interfere in company matters?" "I am the nurse in charge of this patient," Anna replied, drawing herself up to her full height. And I can assure you that removing the father of a sick child violates all medical and ethical protocols. There was a moment of tense silence. Finally, Ernst relented. Fine, he growled. He can stay. But this isn't over, Johannes. After Ernst and the guards had left, Johannes turned to Anna. His eyes glistened with gratitude and something else. Thank you, he said softly. You didn't have to do that. Anna met his gaze, aware of the electricity that seemed to crackle between them. Of course I had to, she replied. We're in this together, remember? As Johannes hugged a still-crying Matthias, Anna realized she had just crossed a line. She was no longer just a nurse helping with a charity project. She had become an ally, a confidant, perhaps even something more. And as she watched father and son in an embrace, she knew there was no turning back. Whatever the future held for them, they would face the storms together. The following days were a whirlwind of activity and emotion. News of Johannes Müller's suspension as CEO of his own company spread like wildfire, generating sensational headlines and wild speculation in the media. Johannes, for his part, refused to remain idle. He spent his days divided between the hospital, where he looked after Matthias, and hectic meetings with lawyers and allies in the business world. He dedicated his nights to tireless work on the foundation project with Anna. One afternoon, while they were going over the final details of the foundation plan in the hospital cafeteria, Anna noticed how exhausted Johannes looked. You should get some rest, she said gently, placing her hand on his. You won't be doing Matthias any favors if you get sick yourself. Johannes looked up from the papers. A small smile formed on his lips. Are you worried about me, Anna? Anna quickly pulled her hand away, feeling the heat rise to her face. I worry about all my patients and their families, she replied, trying to maintain a professional tone. Johannes looked at her for a moment, as if he wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by the arrival of a familiar figure. Excuse me, a voice said. Both turned around and saw Dr. Weber standing next to their table. Could I have a word with you both? Anna felt a knot form in her stomach. Had Dr. Weber come to reprimand her again for her closeness to Johannes? To her surprise, the doctor's face showed more concern than disapproval. I've been following the news, Dr. Weber began, sitting down with them. And I've been thinking a lot about this foundation project you've both been talking about. Johannes and Anna exchanged a surprised look. Doctor, Anna said cautiously, I know you previously expressed some concerns about my involvement in this project. Dr. Weber raised a hand to interrupt her. Yes, and those concerns haven't completely disappeared, but after seeing how you both handled this crisis, I realized that I may have judged your intentions too hastily. He turned toward Johannes. Mr. Müller, what you are trying to do here, despite personal and professional obstacles, is admirable. And Anna, he continued, looking at her, your commitment to this project, in addition to your regular duties, is impressive. Anna felt a lump form in her throat. Dr. Weber's recognition meant more to her than she could express. Thank you, Doctor, Johannes said, his voice filled with emotion. But why are you telling us all this now? Dr. Weber leaned forward and lowered his voice. Because I believe I can help. I have contacts on the hospital board and in other medical facilities in the city. If you are willing to involve me in your cause, I believe we can make this foundation a reality despite the corporate obstacles you are facing. Johannes and Anna looked at each other. A spark of hope ignited in their eyes. Dr. Weber, said Johannes, extending his hand. We would be honored to have you on board. As they shook hands, Anna felt something shift in the air. What had begun as a project, born of gratitude and personal tragedy, was evolving into something greater. Something that could change not only their lives, but those of countless families and children. Yet even as they celebrated this new alliance, none of them could foresee the trials that still awaited them. In the shadows, Ernst Vogel and his allies on the board of Johannes' company were plotting their next move, one that would threaten not just the foundation, but everything Johannes had built. And in the midst of all this, the feelings between Johannes and Anna continued to grow. A quiet but undeniable attraction that would soon force them to confront truths both had avoided. Meanwhile, in his hospital room, Matthias watched the news on TV and heard the stories about his father with a mix of confusion and concern. The boy, wiser than the adults around him realized, began to feel the weight of being the involuntary catalyst for all these changes. As night fell over the hospital, a sense of calm before the storm took hold. Johannes, Anna, and Dr. Weber had taken the first step toward a powerful alliance, but the forces arrayed against them were far from giving up. The stage was set for a battle that would test not only their resources and resolve, but also the bonds they had forged with one another. And at the heart of it all was Matthias, a child whose fight for his life had triggered a series of events that no one could have foreseen. Dawn found Johannes Mueller sitting by Matthias' bed, watching the peaceful face of his sleeping son. The last few weeks had been an emotional roller coaster, and in moments like these, in the silence of the early morning, Johannes allowed himself to feel the weight of everything that was at stake. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Anna entered, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "I thought you could use this," she said softly, offering him one of the cups. Johannes took it with a grateful smile. "You're an angel," he murmured. They stood in silence for a moment, drinking their coffee and watching Matthias. It was Anna who finally broke the silence. "Johannes," she began, her voice little more than a whisper, "there is something I have to tell you." Johannes looked at her and noticed the seriousness on her face. "What's wrong?" Anna took a deep breath. "Dr. Weber, before he decided to support us, warned me about our closeness. Some staff members have expressed concerns about favoritism." Johannes frowned. "That is ridiculous. You are the most dedicated and professional nurse I have ever met too." "Thank you," Anna said with a slight smile. "But that's not all, Johannes. Johannes, I think we need to talk about what is happening between us." Johannes' heart skipped a beat. He knew exactly what Anna was referring to, but he had avoided addressing it, fearing it might complicate their already chaotic situation even further. "Anna," he began, but was interrupted by a soft moan from Matthias, who was starting to wake up. Both turned to the boy, the conversation temporarily forgotten. Matthias slowly opened his eyes and smiled when he saw his father and Anna. "Good morning, buddy," Johannes said, leaning forward to kiss his son's forehead. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," Matthias replied, his voice still raspy from sleep. Then, looking at Anna, he added, "Are you staying with us today, Anna? Anna?" Anna felt a lump form in her throat. "I have to work, honey, but I'll come visit you when I can." Matthias nodded, but there was a hint of disappointment in his eyes that didn't escape either Johannes or Anna. At that moment, Dr. Weber entered the room, his face serious. "Good morning," he said. "Johannes, can I have a word with you for a moment?" In private, Johannes exchanged a worried glance with Anna before following Dr. Weber out of the room. Anna stayed with Matthias, trying to keep a calm expression, while her mind wondered what news the doctor would bring. In the hallway, Dr. Weber spoke quietly, but urgently. "Johannes, I just received a call from one of my contacts on the hospital board. It seems Ernst Vogel has been putting pressure on the hospital to distance itself from your foundation project, Nicht." Johannes felt anger rising inside him. How dare he? That has nothing to do with the company. Dr. Weber nodded understandingly. "I know, but Ernst is playing dirty. He has hinted that your emotional instability could jeopardize the hospital's reputation. Johannes clenched his fists, struggling to maintain his composure. "What can we do?" "For now, stay calm," Dr. Weber replied. "I am working to invalidate these accusations, but we have to be careful. Any misstep could be used against us." Johannes nodded, grateful for the doctor's support. As they re-entered the room, Anna looked at them questioningly, but Johannes just shook his head, signaling that they would speak later. The rest of the morning passed in silent tension. Anna came and went tending to her duties, but kept finding excuses to return to Matthias's room. Johannes alternated between playing with his son and being buried in his phone, desperately trying to manage the crisis from afar. It was just before noon when things reached a critical point. Johannes was in the middle of a heated phone conversation with his lawyer when Matthias began complaining of pain. Anna walked in just in time to see the boy writhing in pain, his face twisted into a grimace. "Matthias!" Johannes exclaimed, dropping the phone and rushing to the bed. Anna was already in action, checking Matthias's vital signs and calling for Dr. Weber. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of hectic activity as the medical team worked to stabilize the boy. When the crisis was finally over, and Matthias fell back asleep exhausted, Johannes collapsed into a chair burying his face in his hands. Anna, exhausted but relieved, approached him. "Johannes," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay now. Matthias is strong." Johannes looked up. His eyes glistened with held-back tears. Without saying a word, he stood up and hugged Anna tightly, burying his face in her shoulder. Anna, initially surprised, returned the hug and felt him trembling slightly in her arms. For a moment, they forgot where they were, who they were, and all the complications that surrounded them. In that embrace, only the two of them existed, united by fear, relief, and something deeper that neither dared to name. When they finally pulled apart, their eyes met, and in that moment, all the unspoken words and repressed feelings seemed to hover between them. "Anna," began Johannes, his voice rough with emotion. But before he could continue, the door was torn open. Ernst Vogel entered, followed by two men in suits whom Johannes recognized as board members of his company. "Sorry to interrupt this moment," said Ernst, his voice full of sarcasm. "But I think it's time we have a serious conversation." Johannes. Anna stepped back, suddenly aware of how compromising the scene must have looked. Johannes straightened up. His face hardened as he faced Ernst. "This is neither the right place nor the right time, Ernst," he said in a cold voice. "My son has just gone through a crisis." Ernst cast a brief glance at the sleeping Matthias, before turning his attention back to Johannes. "That is exactly why we are here. Johannes, your erratic behavior, your questionable decisions. The board is not only concerned about the company, but also about the welfare of your son." Johannes felt his blood run cold. "What are you trying to imply?" Ernst smiled, but there was no warmth in his expression. "We are considering filing for temporary custody of Matthias, for his own good. Obviously, you are not in a position to properly take care of him." The silence that followed was deafening. Anna looked in horror from Ernst to Johannes and saw the color drain from the face of the man she had begun to admire and, yes, to love. In this moment, with Matthias vulnerable in his hospital bed, Ernst threatening to take his son away, and Anna standing as a silent witness to it all, Johannes Müller faced the most difficult decision of his life. A decision that could cost him everything he loved, or give him the strength to fight the forces that threatened to destroy him. The air in the room was thick with tension, and as Johannes looked into Ernst's eyes, he knew that the real battle was just beginning. A fight for his son, for his legacy, and for the future he was just beginning to imagine, with Anna by his side. The silence in the hospital room was so thick you could almost cut it with a knife. Johannes Müller, the once so powerful businessman, now resembled a cornered lion. His eyes burned with a mixture of anger and fear as he stared at Ernst Vogel. "You wouldn't dare," growled Johannes, his voice low and dangerous. "That." Ernst smiled, a cold, calculated smile that did not reach his eyes. "Oh yes, Johannes. The board agrees that your recent behavior raises serious doubts about your ability to care for Matthias. After all, what father risks his son's future for a philanthropic whim?" Anna, who had been watching the exchange with growing horror, finally found her voice. "Excuse me, Mr. Vogel," she said, her tone professional but with a trace of steel. "But as the medical professional responsible for Matthias's care, I can assure you that Mr. Mueller has been an exemplary father throughout his son's stay here." Ernst barely gave her a glance. "With all due respect, Miss Nurse Schmidt," Anna corrected firmly. Nurse Schmidt continued seriously with a hint of condescension. "This is a family and business matter. Your opinion, as valued as it may be, has no legal relevance in this case." Johannes took a step forward, placing himself protectively between Ernst and Matthias's bed. "Get out of here, Ernst. Immediately. I will not let you threaten my family in my son's hospital room." For a moment it seemed as if Ernst wanted to reply, but something in Johannes's gaze made him hesitate. "This isn't over, Johannes," he warned as he moved toward the door. "Expect to hear from our lawyers." After Ernst and his companions left, Johannes sank into the chair by Matthias's bed, his face a mask of agony. Anna approached him and knelt down in front of him. "Johannes," she said softly, taking his hands in hers, "we won't let that happen. We will fight." Johannes looked up. His eyes met Anna's. In that moment, all the barriers they had built between them seemed to crumble. "Anna," he whispered, his voice broken with emotion, "I don't know what I would do without you. You have been my rock through everything." Anna felt her heart beat faster. She knew they were standing on the edge of something, an emotional abyss from which there would be no turning back once they crossed it. "Johannes." But before she could continue, Matthias's sleepy voice interrupted her. "Papa, what's wrong?" Both turned to the bed, where Matthias looked at them with sleepy but concerned eyes. "Nothing, buddy," Johannes said, forcing a smile and going to his son. "Everything is fine. Go back to sleep." But Matthias, with the keenness only children possess, could not be fooled. "I heard angry voices. Is someone trying to take me away from you, Papa?" Johannes felt his heart constrict. He sat on the bed and hugged his son tightly. "No one is taking you anywhere, Matthias. I promise you. Papa won't allow that." Anna watched the scene, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. In that moment, she made a decision she knew could cost her career, but her heart told her it was the right thing to do. "Johannes," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion, "I think I know how we can fight this." Johannes looked at her. A spark of hope ignited in his eyes. "How?" "I will testify," Anna said. "As Matthias's head nurse, my testimony regarding your dedication as a father will carry weight." She paused and took a deep breath. "I will disclose the situation with the foundation, how you work tirelessly to help other children, like Matthias, even at the cost of your own career." Johannes looked at her, astonished. "Anna, I cannot ask you to do that. You could lose your job." Anna gave a sad smile. "Some things are more important than a job, Johannes. You taught me that." In that moment, with Matthias between them and the weight of the decisions they faced upon their shoulders, Johannes and Anna looked at each other. A silent understanding passed between them. Without words, they both knew that what they felt for each other went beyond gratitude or friendship. Just as the moment seemed to pull them toward crossing that final line, the door opened and Dr. Weber entered, his face grave. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, noticing the tension in the room, "but we need to talk." The hospital's lawyers are here, and things are getting complicated. Johannes and Anna pulled apart. The reality of their situation weighed heavily on them again. But as Johannes stood up to follow Dr. Weber, he felt Anna's hand in his, squeezing it gently in support. "I'll be here," she said simply. Johannes nodded gratefully before turning to Matthias. "I'll be back soon, buddy. Get some rest." "Okay." While Johannes left the room with Dr. Weber, Anna stayed with Matthias. Her head was spinning with the implications of what she was about to do. She knew that by testifying in Johannes's favor, she was not only risking her career, but also exposing her own feelings to public scrutiny. But as she looked at Matthias, who had finally fallen back asleep, she knew she had no other choice. Some fights were worth fighting, regardless of the personal cost. And this one, Anna decided, was one for which she was willing to risk everything. Out in the hospital hallway, Johannes faced his own demons. As he followed Dr. Weber into what he knew would be another round of legal and corporate conflict, one thing became clear to him. Whatever was going to happen, he would fight with everything he had. For Matthias, for the foundation, and for the future he was only just daring to imagine with Anna by his side. Dr. Weber led him into a conference room where several men in suits were waiting for them. Johannes recognized some as the hospital's lawyers. Others appeared to be representatives from his own company. "Mr. Mueller," one of the hospital lawyers began, "we understand that you are in a difficult situation, but we must consider the legal and ethical implications of your current circumstances." Johannes sat down, his face a mask of determination. "I'm listening," he said simply. For the next hour, Johannes listened as the lawyers laid out the hospital's concerns regarding his continued presence, the accusations from Ernst Vogel, and the potential legal consequences of the upcoming custody battle. Finally, when everyone had finished speaking, Johannes stood up slowly. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I appreciate your concerns, but let me make one thing clear. I will not abandon my son. I will not give up the foundation that could help so many children like Matthias. And I certainly will not let Ernst Vogel or anyone else intimidate me into giving up what is right." There was a moment of silence in the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, Dr. Weber spoke up. "I agree with Mr. Mueller," he said. "I have witnessed firsthand his dedication as a father and the importance of the foundation he is trying to establish. I believe it would be a grave mistake for this hospital to distance itself from a project that could benefit so many." The lawyers exchanged glances. Clearly, they had not expected this turn of events. Meanwhile, in Matthias's room, Anna was struggling with her own dilemmas. She knew that her decision to testify for Johannes could cost her her career. But every time she looked at Matthias, she knew she was doing the right thing. At that moment, Matthias woke up again. "Anna," he said softly, "are you in love with my dad?" The question caught Anna completely off guard. Matthias, it's complicated," she replied, struggling to find the right words. Matthias looked at her with a wisdom beyond his years. "Adults always say that things are complicated," he said. "But love shouldn't be, right? You make Papa happy, and he makes you happy. I can see it." Anna felt tears gathering in her eyes. "You are a very smart boy, Matthias," she said softly. "And you're right, your papa makes me very happy." "Then you should tell him," Matthias said, with the simplicity of a child. "What? Life is short, Grandma always says that." Anna couldn't help but laugh through her tears. "Your grandma sounds like a very wise woman," she said. At that very moment, the door opened and Johannes entered. His face showed signs of exhaustion, but also determination. "How are my two favorite people doing?" he asked, forcing a smile. "Papa," Matthias said immediately, "Anna has something to tell you." Johannes looked at Anna confused. "What's wrong?" Anna felt her heart pounding wildly. This was not the moment she had imagined. But perhaps Matthias was right. Perhaps life was too short to complicate things. "Johannes," she began. Her voice trembled slightly. We. But before she could finish, the door was thrown open. Ernst Vogel stepped in, followed by 2 police officers. "Sorry to intrude," said Ernst, his voice full of false sympathy. "But I have a court order. Johannes Müller, you are temporarily relieved of custody of Matthias until an investigation into your fitness as a father is completed." Chaos erupted in the room. Matthias began to cry and clung to Johannes. Anna stood between the bed and the officers, her face a mask of determination. "You can't do this," said Johannes, his voice breaking with emotion. "He is my son. He needs me." Ernst smiled coldly. "I'm sorry, Johannes, but it's for Matthias's best. Don't worry, he will be in good hands." As the officers moved forward, Anna made a decision in a split second. She turned to Johannes and kissed him passionately in front of everyone present. When they broke apart, she looked directly into Ernst's eyes. "I will testify," she said firmly, "about the father Johannes is, about the foundation, about everything. And I advise you, Mr. Vogel, prepare yourself for a legal battle that will make your actions today look like child's play." Ernst's face turned slightly pale. Clearly, he had not expected this resistance. At that moment, as if fate itself had decided to intervene, Dr. Weber entered the room, followed by several members of the hospital board. "I think we all need to have a conversation," Dr. Weber said with authority. "Officers, I must ask you to wait outside. No one is taking anyone anywhere until we have cleared a few things up." As the chaos in the room began to subside, Johannes looked at Anna, his eyes full of gratitude and something deeper. He knew that whatever happened next, he was no longer alone in this fight. From his bed, Matthias watched everything with wide, frightened eyes, but also with a spark of hope. Perhaps, he thought, complicated things could be simplified after all. Perhaps love in all its forms was stronger than any court order or corporate threat. And so the hospital room became the stage for a battle that would determine not only Matthias's fate, but that of everyone involved. A battle for love, justice, and the power of compassion in the face of greed and manipulation. The tension in the hospital room was palpable. Johannes Müller stood beside Matthias's bed, one hand protectively on his son's shoulder, the other firmly interlaced with Anna's. Across from them, Ernst Vogel and the police officers waited, while Dr. Weber and the hospital board members watched the scene with grave expressions. "Well then," Dr. Weber began, his voice calm but firm. "I think we all need to pause for a moment and consider what is truly important here. We are in a hospital, and our primary concern must be the well-being of Matthias." Ernst stepped forward, his face a mask of false concern. "Exactly, doctor. And it is for Matthias's well-being that we are here. Clearly, Johannes is currently unable to properly care for his son." Johannes felt anger rising within him, but before he could respond, Anna spoke up. "With all due respect, Mr. Vogel," she said in a firm voice, "as Matthias's head nurse, I can testify that Mr. Müller has been an exemplary father throughout his son's entire stay here. He has been present, attentive, and completely dedicated to Matthias's well-being." One of the board members, an older woman with glasses, cleared her throat. "Nurse Schmidt, we understand your position, but we have also heard rumors of a personal relationship between you and Mr. Müller. Can you assure us that your judgment is not compromised?" Anna felt herself blushing, but she held her head high. "My personal relationship with Mr. Müller has nothing to do with my professional assessment of his abilities as a father. In fact, it is precisely because I have witnessed his devotion and love for Matthias that I can speak with such conviction." Johannes looked at Anna with a mixture of gratitude and admiration. In that moment, he knew that no matter what happened, they would fight together. "If I may," Dr. Weber interjected, "I believe there is another aspect we must consider. Mr. Mueller has been working on a foundation project that could enormously benefit our hospital and many children, like Matthias. Do we really want to risk losing this opportunity? Ernst laughed contemptuously. A foundation, please. That is just a desperate attempt by Johannes to polish his image. At that moment, Matthias, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. That's not true, he said, his voice small but firm. Dad wants to help other children. He told me so. He wants no other child to have to go through what I went through. All eyes turned to the boy. Johannes felt a lump form in his throat. Matthias is right, he said softly. All of this, the foundation, the changes in my life, it is because I have finally understood what is truly important. It is not the money. It is not the power. It is about making a difference in the lives of others. There was a moment of silence in the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, one of the hospital board members, an older gentleman with an impressive mustache, cleared his throat. I think we should hear more about this foundation, he said. If it can truly benefit our hospital and the children we care for, it would be irresponsible of us not to consider it. Ernst looked furious. This is ridiculous. We have a court order. An order that was based on incomplete information, Anna interjected. I am prepared to testify under oath about everything I have witnessed here about Johannes. Love for Matthias, about his commitment to the foundation, about everything. The police officers exchanged uneasy glances. Clearly, they had not expected this resistance. Dr. Weber stepped forward. I propose the following. We postpone any legal action for 48 hours. During this time, Mr. Mueller and Nurse Schmidt will present their proposal for the foundation to the hospital board. We will also collect witness statements from the medical staff regarding Mr. Mueller's behavior during Matthias' stay. After that, we will make an informed decision on how to proceed. There was a murmur of agreement among the board members. Even the police officers seemed relieved by this temporary solution. Ernst, seeing that he was losing ground, attempted one last blow. Johannes, think about what you are doing. You're risking everything you've worked for. Johannes looked at his former colleague and, for the first time, felt pity for him. You're wrong, Ernst. I'm not risking everything. I am discovering what is truly important. With these words, the atmosphere in the room changed. The police officer stepped back after a nod from Dr. Weber. The board members began to discuss things quietly among themselves. Ernst, beaten for the moment, left the room without another word. Johannes turned to Anna and Matthias and hugged them both. Thank you, he whispered, his voice full of emotion. To both of you, I don't know what I would do without you. Anna returned the hug. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. We are in this together, she said softly. All of us. Matthias, in the middle of the hug, smiled. See, Dad, I told you that Anna loves you. Johannes and Anna looked at each other, surprised by the boy's openness, but unable to deny the truth in his words. Dr. Weber, observing the scene, couldn't suppress a small smile. God, he said, clearing his throat, we have a lot of work ahead of us in the next 48 hours. I suggest we all get some rest and prepare for tomorrow. As the doctor and the remaining board members left the room, Johannes, Anna, and Matthias stayed together, a small island of calm in the sea of chaos surrounding them. They knew the challenges they faced were far from over. But for the first time in a long time, they felt a spark of real hope. Outside, the sun began to set, bathing the hospital room in a warm, golden light. It was as if the universe itself was signaling that light always follows the darkness. And for Johannes, Anna, and Matthias, that light seemed brighter than ever before. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of frantic activity. Johannes and Anna worked tirelessly, preparing their presentation for the hospital board. They spent sleepless nights refining every detail of the foundation plan, ensuring every aspect was backed by solid data and realistic projections. Meanwhile, Dr. Weber coordinated the collection of witness statements from the hospital staff. Nurses, doctors, and even cleaning staff volunteered to share their experiences with Johannes and Matthias. The stories of paternal devotion, of nights at the bedside, of moments of laughter and comfort amidst adversity piled up quickly. The morning of the presentation arrived with a mixture of nervousness and determination. Johannes, in a suit but no tie, a subtle yet significant change from his former corporate style, stood by the conference room window watching the sunrise. Anna entered carrying a stack of folders. "Ready?" she asked gently. Johannes turned to her, a small smile on his lips. "As ready as I can be. Anna, whatever happens today, I want you to know." She interrupted him with a soft kiss on the cheek. "I know," she said simply. "I do too." The door opened, and the board members began to enter. Johannes noted with a mix of relief and concern that Ernst Vogel was not among them. Dr. Weber was the last to enter, accompanied by a surprise. Matthias in a wheelchair with a nurse by his side. "I hope you don't mind," said Dr. Weber. Matthias insisted on being here. "I think he has every right to be part of this." Johannes felt a lump form in his throat as his son smiled bravely at him. The presentation began. Johannes and Anna took turns explaining their vision for the foundation. They spoke of research programs, improvements in medical equipment, and support for families who could not afford expensive treatments. But more than numbers and projections, they spoke of hope, of the possibility of a future where no father would have to experience the despair Johannes had, where no child would have to suffer without the best possible care. When they finished, there was a moment of silence in the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, Matthias raised his hand. "May I say something?" he asked shyly. The chairman of the board nodded, visibly moved. Matthias looked at his father and then at Anna before speaking. "I know I'm just a kid," he began, "but I've seen things that many adults haven't. I've seen what it means to be really scared, but I've also seen what true love is. My dad, he changed for me and for other kids like me. And Anna, she helped us see that we can make something good out of anything. I don't understand everything about foundations and boards, but I know that if you can help other kids not have to be so scared, then it's a good thing. Please let them do it." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when Matthias had finished. The chairman of the board cleared his throat, visibly moved. "I believe I speak for all of us when I say that we are deeply impressed. Mr. Mueller, Nurse Schmidt, your proposal is extraordinary. We will need time to discuss the details, but I can confidently say that you have our full support." The wave of relief and joy that filled the room was palpable. Johannes hugged Matthias. Tears streamed freely down his face. Anna joined the hug, and for a moment, the outside world ceased to exist. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The foundation was officially established with Johannes and Anna as co-directors. Ernst Vogel, facing an investigation regarding his actions, quietly resigned from the board of Johannes' Koi company. Matthias' condition continued to improve, and he was soon discharged from the hospital. On the day he could finally go home, the entire intensive care staff gathered to say goodbye, many with tears in their eyes. Months later, at the grand opening of the Foundation's first project, a pediatric research center, Johannes stood at a podium once again. But this time, he was not speaking of profits and acquisitions, but of hope and second chances. "A year ago," he said, his voice full of emotion, "I thought I had lost everything. But in reality, I was on the verge of finding everything." He looked at Anna, who was standing next to him, and at Matthias, healthy and smiling in the front row. "I have learned that true success is not measured in dollars or stocks, but in the lives we touch and the difference we make. This foundation is a testament to that. It is a testament to the power of love, compassion, and yes, even forgiveness. As the crowd applauded, Johannes stepped down from the podium and hugged his family. Anna, now his fiancée, gave him a gentle kiss. Matthias, who was growing stronger every day, hugged them both. In that moment, surrounded by love and purpose, Johannes Müller knew he had found his true legacy. Not in the skyscrapers he had built, or the fortunes he had amassed, but in the hearts he had touched and the lives he had changed. And as the sun set over the city, bathing everything in a warm golden glow, Johannes, Anna, and Matthias walked toward their future together, ready to face any challenge that might come. For now they knew that with love and determination, anything was possible.